So not only do you find yourself getting on the internet and calling yourself ugly, you then get on the internet, call yourself ugly, asking, where are the men at who like mid Black women? Great. What are we supposed to do with this information exactly? Like, aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel if you are new here. Welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we're talking about this trend of people, but more specifically, Black women getting on the internet, especially TikTok, calling themselves ugly, and how people are responding to the trend this time around. Because I have personally noticed the response is different. And I think that there are multiple reasons why it is not being received as it typically is. Because like I said, this is a cyclical thing. I've seen it at least go through 4 or 5 trends and cycles on social media, specifically TikTok, which amplifies this type of content for several reasons, because on TikTok, unfortunately, what often tracks and trends is the negativity. And so I've noticed it more specifically on TikTok. I really don't see people getting on Instagram like this and it going viral in that way, or even Facebook when I was more actively on Facebook. I don't see it on Threads, and I was never on Twitter. So TikTok is specifically where this type of behavior proliferates. And like I said, we've seen several cycles of this trend of women, especially Black women, getting online and calling themselves ugly or mid. However, this time around, the response has been very different. And I think that there are several reasons as to why this is happening. One, people are more keen on recognizing that they are being rage baited. And also, if you genuinely feel you are ugly, there are so many tools available at your disposal nowadays that you can fix ugly. Even if you don't have a boatload of money, you can fix ugly. Okay, so ugly is one of those things now, like, there's no excuse, go fix it. So I think people are responding differently because ugly, or what people perceive, or what that person personally perceives to be ugly in their eyes, that can be fixed. 2, I think people are just tired. We are living in an economic crisis. We're in a recession. We're in a vibe session. The music's not good. Actually, no, let me rephrase that, because I do think we're seeing a little bit of recession pop come back, and the vibes are so off this time around because the music isn't good. Like, I remember the Great Recession, like 2008 through like 2000, the early 2000s, we had amazing music, and that's what helped the vibes not feel as off. But this time around, the recession vibes are off because the music is trash. So I think people are not responding the way they typically would, in a more uplifting way, because people are tired. They're like, we got things to worry about. Okay, you're ugly, boo-hoo, go cry about it somewhere else. Some people may lose their food stamps. Some people are going to lose their health insurance. We're in the middle of a government shutdown. Girl, gone. Nobody cares. So I think that's the reason why people are also responding the way they are. And the third reason, and I'll get into this a little bit later in the video because I don't see as many people talking about it, and it's something that I've noticed on social media. I think people are now starting to recognize not just narcissism on social media, at least the way we think about narcissism, but vulnerable narcissism. Because the way we think about narcissism on social media is people who have these delusions of grandeur, very overt narcissism, the classic narcissism that we attribute to certain personality traits. And I know the word narcissist has been thrown around a million times. When everybody's a narcissist, nobody's a narcissist. When people display narcissistic behaviors, nothing is narcissistic in terms of behavior. I totally get that. However, when people are using the word narcissism, typically they're using it in the overt sense that we all typically think of when you think about narcissism. However, there's another side of narcissism which is more covert in nature, and that is vulnerable narcissism. And I've started to notice how that is trending on social media, in the sense that there are a lot of people, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but there are a lot of people who get online and display behaviors, and it comes across as insecure. It comes across as, oh, this person just has low self-esteem and they just need some lifting up. They've been so beat down in life. You know, they present themselves as a perma victim. However, when you scroll for a little bit longer and start to get a sense of who they are, they also display narcissistic behaviors. It's just that the types of narcissism that they are displaying are not what we typically attribute to narcissism. It's a more vulnerable narcissism that is at play that I've noticed in some people's content and how they go viral and how they've built their platforms being perma victims. And I think people are becoming a little bit more keen and aware of what's happening, and they're no longer allowing themselves to be manipulated in that way. So let's get into the video. Now, like I said, this trend has had cycles throughout the pandemic Lovato. I think I got on TikTok around 2021. I briefly dabbled in it in 2020, immediately got off of it, got back on it in 2021 and started actively and regularly using TikTok in 2022. And that's the first time I really noticed people getting on the internet and calling themselves ugly. So like I said, this trend is nothing new. However, what is different this time around, at least in this most recent trend cycle, is this reclamation of being ugly. You know, it's this ugly uprising where people are calling themselves out to be ugly, but kind of wearing it with a badge of pride and not something necessarily of shame. And I don't even like the fact that being ugly would be seen as something shameful, because not only is beauty in the eye of the beholder, what is considered beautiful also varies across race, it varies across culture, it varies across countries. However, the vast majority of people in America are on American TikTok. And so because we are on American TikTok, there are obviously standards of beauty that exist here in America as on a mainstream level. And our beauty standards here in America typically tend to be white supremacist beauty standards. They are rooted in anti-Blackness. We all know this. So this video is not going to cover that too much because I feel like it's pretty redundant. If you disagree, go pound sand, because we're not even going to get into that conversation. Go argue with your mama, okay? If you live in America, we are socialized under a system of white supremacist beauty standards. That is just what it is. So there is a specific idea of beauty in this country. And if you fall outside of that standard of beauty, and you are not being reinforced in your own communities and where you grew up, that is something you are going to internalize. Even though I was raised in America, I was born here, raised here, socialized here. My parents are Nigerian immigrants. They came here in the 80s. And so growing up in my household, all of the beauty standards that were present and made available to me, or that were just that I internalized at a very young age, were very pro-Black. My features, my skin type, my hair, it was all uplifted. So at no point ever in my life have I ever felt ugly. That's not something that I have ever claimed. The first time anybody actually ever called me ugly, I distinctly remember it, not because it scarred me, but because I was confused. Because the boy who called me ugly, he was calling me ugly because I was dark skinned, but he was darker than me. So my confusion was, A, if I am so ugly, why are you trying to talk to me? Because the reason why he called me ugly, he said, you are ugly and Black. You are dark skinned and you are ugly because you are dark skinned. And I'm like, you just asked me to be your girlfriend. I said, no. Why would you want an ugly girlfriend? And on top of that, you're darker skinned than me. So if I'm ugly because I'm dark skinned, doesn't that make you uglier than me? Like, I was confused. So I never even internalized that. And that was the first time in my life that anybody had called me ugly. And I think probably the last time. Yeah. Although now that I've said it, somebody's going to drop down in the comments and be like, you ugly boob. But anyways, so all of this to say that, yes, there is an umbrella of beauty standards that exist in America. And if you buy into those beauty standards, or you have been socialized in a community where those beauty standards are upheld and reinforced, and they have made you to feel ugly your entire life, getting on social media and seeing something like an ugly girl uprising or an ugly people uprising I can reasonably understand would make you feel empowered to take back your power and reclaim being ugly and being proud. So if you ascribe that for yourself, or you believe that to be true about yourself, and you are taking it back, I can understand that. You know, self-awareness is a very powerful thing. To be acutely aware of how you walk through the world and how people receive and perceive you as a result, that is a very powerful thing. It is a necessary life skill. It is a survival tool. And something that I often talk about, or just am surprised by, is the amount of adults I see on a daily basis who have made it through life at their big grown age lacking self-awareness. Like, I am constantly in awe of people who lack self-awareness. So there is nothing wrong with, I guess, taking on and proclaiming ugliness for yourself if that is what you want, because self-awareness is a powerful thing. However, at the same time, there is power in the written and the spoken word. And the things you say out of your mouth, you are casting spells over yourself. And so there is so much that comes with ugliness, in my personal opinion. It's not just a physical thing, it is also a mental thing. It is also an energy thing, because some of the most beautiful phenotypically people in the world who meet these standards of beauty, their insides are so ugly, and that is what makes them ugly. And so the way I perceive ugliness, it's not something that is just narrow in terms of beauty and the physical. It is in terms of the whole person. And so when people say things like, I am ugly, you are casting that spell over yourself. And it's just something that energetically, that will start to manifest in you and become how you show up in the world, and you will carry that ugly energy with you. And so it may not be that you're ugly physically that is off-putting to people. It is the energy that you come with that is off-putting to people. And generally, when I see people with a great level of low self-esteem as a result of them saying that they are ugly, it seeps into every fiber of their being, and being around them altogether starts to be unpleasant. And it has nothing to do with their face and everything to do with your energy, because you are casting spells with your words. You are bringing power to your words and your thoughts, the things you say, the things you think, the things that you believe about yourself. These things are very powerful. And so people need to be so much more intentional about how they speak about themselves, what they speak about themselves, and what they put out into the atmosphere about themselves. Because how you perceive you and how you talk to you and your internal dialogue will ultimately become your thoughts, your words, your character, and inform how other people not only perceive you and receive you, but how they treat you, how they talk to you. And you are bringing and inviting that energy into your life. And it's just really disturbing to me how so many people are not intentional with the things that they say to themselves and the powers and the spells that they are casting over themselves when they say these things and put this energy out into the atmosphere. And it's that specific rhetoric that I saw in the video of this girl who sparked this entire ugly uprising and ugly revolution. The reason why her video was so disturbing to me, I mean, there were several reasons why it was so disturbing to me, and I wish that I had captured it before she deleted it, but now I caught a little part of it, but because she deleted it, I don't want to put it out into the universe again. The way I figure, if somebody deletes a video, they've deleted it. I don't want to continue to, even if I could find snippets of it, I don't want to share it too much, but this was the video. I'm not going to share it with audio. I'm just going to share the text that she had on screen, and then another video she posted, again with the text on screen, to just kind of give you a gist of basically the message that she was sending. But it was essentially basically putting out a call for a man, saying that most Black women are very attractive. However, she is just not. And, you know, she's tried all of these things to make herself pretty, but at the end of the day, she is just ugly, and she is just accepting that she is ugly. And since then, she has posted several videos basically calling people out for thinking everyone should be beautiful, or everybody freaking out about her calling herself ugly. And it's just like, no, I don't think anybody, if you want to call yourself ugly, like I said, I guess that's fine. What disturbs me, A, is the energy you're putting out into the atmosphere like that. B, it makes me sad that she genuinely believes that about herself. But also C, I am really sick and tired of, honestly, if I'm being real, I am very sick and tired of Black women coming out onto the internet to put this energy out into the atmosphere like that. I don't see other racial groups of people doing it. And that's a lie, actually. I have seen a few not Southeast Asian. I have seen a few Asians come out and say these things, but it's not about their presence as a whole. Typically, it's about one feature they don't like. Sometimes it'll be their nose, sometimes it'll be their lips, sometimes it'll be their eyes. And again, these standards of beauty are based in regional standards of beauty. There are a lot of us, unfortunately, nowhere on this planet has gone untouched by colonialism and colonization. So a lot of beauty standards in the global South have been heavily, unfortunately, influenced by white supremacist standards of beauty. However, when it comes to Black women, and again, I think it's probably because I'm based here in America, the vast majority of my algorithm understands me very well. So it generally feeds me content from predominantly Black women. The vast majority of my followers are Black women. So that's the content that I'm likely seeing. So our algorithms are only a reflection of what we are searching. Like I always say this about your algorithm. If you hate or are annoyed about something that consistently is showing up on your algorithm, it is showing up on your algorithm because you are interacting with that type of content. And the algorithms are basically learning language models. They are learning you. They are feeding back to you what you are interacting with and engaging with. So anyways, like I said, this trend, it is cyclical. There is nothing that is new about Black women getting on the internet and calling themselves ugly. Now, as I've stated at least 3 times in this video, she is entitled to call herself ugly. If she wants to feel ugly, she can feel ugly. That's fine. However, when I look at her, I don't see somebody that's ugly. I see somebody that looks like some of my friends, some of my family members who are very much dating, very much married, very much loved, very much being well taken care of by the loves of their life. So I'm looking at somebody that I don't perceive to be ugly. I'm looking at someone who is dealing with some hyperpigmentation and skincare issues. So baby girl, if you ever come across this video when you want a solid skincare routine, hit me up. There's one thing about me. If you know anything about me, you know I love me some good skincare. So if you need some skincare recommendations and advice, hit me up. But also maybe like a better hair moisturizer to change her clothes. I don't know. Again, I'm not seeing somebody who is ugly. However, if she feels she's ugly, she is entitled to that. Also, another reason why my opinion doesn't really matter, I'm not a man. In that video, she was specifically asking for men who find mid and ugly Black women attractive. I am not a man. I'm not her target demographic or audience for that video. However, that is partially what disturbs me most about that video. Her asking for a man or seeking a relationship with a man while having that mindset is very dangerous and disturbing for several reasons. First and foremost, self-love comes from within. And I am one of those people who genuinely feels that you cannot be happy with anyone else or someone else until you are happy with yourself, until you love yourself. Self-love is the best love. It is the most important love, and it is the most enduring love. And so when you are out there trying to date someone, if your self-love isn't on point, if your self-esteem isn't on point, and you are so desperate for love, you are so desperate for a man, any man who will just take you the way you are, ugliness and all, you're not necessarily looking for someone or going to pick someone who your discernment is not going to be on point to pick someone who is of good character. You will just be happy somebody is giving you attention to have a man, any piece of man. And how often do we see women like that with that mentality? How often do things go well for them in the dating climate and environment? Self-love starts within. And if you are calling yourself ugly, you have low feelings of self-worth and value. What type of man is she going to attract with that mindset? When you've put it out to billions of people on the internet to see that any man will do as long as he likes you because you're ugly, not because you're ugly, despite your ugliness. You are priming a man to then come into your life, a man who thinks that you should just be happy, that he will accept you and love you and like you the way you are, ugliness and all. And you should just be willing and ready and to settle and take whatever treatment he is willing to throw your way, whatever love he's willing to throw your way, because he is dating you despite your ugliness. That is basically the energy she is putting out there, and that is terrifying to me on her behalf. She doesn't need a man. And this isn't to say someone with low self-esteem shouldn't be dating. However, like I said earlier, energy is very powerful, and the energy you put out is catching and has the power to attract certain things, good and bad. And someone who is putting that energy out there, in my personal opinion, I would be very worried about attracting a lot of negativity my way. That's just me. On top of that, is she ugly, or is it an environment thing? Has she been socialized in an environment to make her think she is ugly? Because yes, in America, we live under the, again, umbrella of white supremacist beauty standards. However, a lot of this is regionally based. As I stated, I have friends and family who look like her. Family in Nigeria, some family here, friends here who look like her in the DMV, in the South, a little bit in the North, in the Northeast. I have friends who look like her, who are in successful relationships, who are happily married, who are dating, and who are having a good time of dating. So I would be very curious to see where she is based, because is she ugly, or is she just in the wrong location? And there is a creator, Stefco. I love her videos. We're actually mutuals on TikTok, so go check her out. And I'm actually going to tag her video in the caption because I think it is very important. And she brought up a really good point. Are you ugly, or is it your environment? Because I live in the DC area. I grew up in the DC area, was socialized here in the DC area, and how I am received and treated and the attention that I get in DC is very different. Baltimore too is very different than how I am received and the attention that I get from men when I am in Northern Virginia. I do literally nothing for the male gaze. I don't care how men receive me. I don't care if men think I am attractive. The only men's opinion that I care about is Snowbase, my husband, anybody else's opinion. I don't care. If you don't like the material ain't for you, okay? It's almost like if you've been on TikTok, you've heard about the New York 10 or the LA 5 or the Miami 4 or the Houston 6. All of these rankings that vary where you are in certain states or major cities. And even when you are in those major cities, how you are ranked and perceived in different parts of that city. For example, NYC. Somebody who is in Brooklyn is going to be received differently than in terms of beauty standards on the Upper East Side or the Upper West Side. And then you have to think about racially, white standards of beauty, black standards of beauty. So there's all of these things happening that absolutely influence how people are attracted to you in one area. So is it that you're ugly, or is it that you need to move somewhere different? Like, Stefco breaks this down perfectly, and I absolutely agree with her 100%, because I think a lot of the time, our area and where we are living, it absolutely influences not only the dating scene and the dating market, but also the standards of beauty. So for example, here in DC, like one of my friends in LA, she came over here to DC and she was like, people in DC are really ugly. And I was like, well, damn, like, but I think it's because she is, again, used to seeing a certain type of person in LA. But dating for her was hard out here in DC because she is kind of used to more so, I won't say coasting off of her looks, because she's very smart, has all the degrees in the world. But she was like, what she was looking for in a man was completely different in LA than it was here in DC, because the men here are looking for something completely different. It's not just your physical, but people in this area also tend to, in my personal opinion, and if you're from the DC area, you can drop that in the comments and let me know if you agree or disagree. But also, they're not just dating for looks. It's also, well, what do you do for a living? How much money can we make together? What degrees do you have? Like, what type of career path are you on? People are looking for completely different things. So it's not only always going to be based off of looks, but it's also going to be based off of resources. So there are just so many things that go into these whole beauty standards and the dating scene. Not beauty standards, but just the dating scene and the experiences that some people are having in certain areas when they are dating that may not explicitly be about your looks. So if you are trying to date, if you want relationships, if you want love, because I don't think that there's anything wrong with seeking partnership. I don't disagree with her. I don't have an issue with her wanting a man and seeking a man and wanting to find a man. I just don't think she needs to be dating with the type of mindset that she has. And maybe her mindset would be improved if she moved to an area where people are attracted to people who look like her. But at the end of the day, regardless of where she's from, whether it's her hair, whether it's her skincare routine, whether it's her energy, why post this? why am I posting this? Why does anybody post anything on the internet? Like, let me not judge to a certain extent. It's just that why post something so demeaning and off-putting, genuinely very off-putting, because I think she's trying to come across as very like passive and I'm reclaiming this, but it was just giving very low self-esteem to me. And so you post this on the internet, something very demeaning, have men slid into your inbox. Like, what has come from this? Like, why post something on the internet like that? Like, what is the desired outcome? What is the intended outcome? And I think it's less of, there really could be a man that will slide into her DMs. And if that works out for her, that's honestly great, because she found herself someone who is hopefully of good character that will date ugly women or an ugly woman, her, and that's great. I love that for her. However, earlier I talked about vulnerable narcissism and how I personally, even though I am not someone, let me make this very clear, I do not have a degree in psychology. I do not have a doctorate in behavioral issues and personality disorders. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I am just someone who observes human behavior and who has read the DSM-4. I took AP Psych in high school and I got a 4 on that test. I actually got credits to go into college. So psychology and human behavior sociology is very fascinating to me. I love observing human behavior. And so again, disclaimer, even though I do not have degrees in any of this, however, if I'm being 110% honest, that type of content comes across to me, in my personal opinion, based off of my observations of how people use social media. It comes across as vulnerable narcissism, and people do not receive it as vulnerable narcissism because the type of narcissism these people are displaying is very covert in nature, and it is not the type of narcissism we're used to seeing and people talking about, the behaviors people describe when they typically think about narcissism. But this behavior, getting on the internet and consistently debasing yourself, demeaning yourself, posting all of this low self-esteem content, to a certain degree, in my personal opinion, it does give vulnerable narcissism. It gives attention seeking, because these people are aware that there is something about themselves that they do not like, but are they doing anything to change it in their actual lives? Are they going to therapy? Are they doing any inner self work to get themselves out of these negative thought patterns and these limiting mindsets? Are they doing anything, these scarcity mindsets that they carry with them? Are they doing anything to make themselves even aware of the fact that they are carrying these belittling thoughts and scarcity mindset and these limiting beliefs around them that are crippling their lives, that are crushing their lives, that are making it so they're not living the types of lives that they want, that is making them unhappy? No, these people are steeped in their own unhappiness and they enjoy it. Their unhappiness is content. And if they actually chose to get better, if that girl chose to go out and get a better skincare routine and do her hair and go to the gym and go to therapy and do all of the things to make herself look better and present better, she wouldn't be on the internet calling herself ugly. But would it get her a following? Would it get her the attention that she's looking for? No. It's like, again, these tools are available to these people and they choose not to take them because the attention that they get from their sad story, from their terrible lives, it's more important to them. The attention that they're getting is more important to them than it is bettering their situation. They want to be miserable. I said this in another video. There are people who want to be sad. There are people who want to be mad. There are people who want to be miserable. And you just got to let them. It's like that friend, that person you know that complains about the same situation day in, day out, day in, day out. They're not asking for advice. They don't take any advice that you give them. So you just listen to them. And they're emotional vampires. Like, these people are emotional vampires. And just because they're not taking your energy in real life, or these people, their behavior is so off-putting in real life, that they don't really have people that they can talk to, they go to the internet to replace those in-person relationships and friendships, and then they drain the people on the internet, or they get their supply, they get their narcissistic supply from the people on the internet who see them and they're like, oh my goodness, this person looks so sad. I can't believe they're going through this situation. Let me give you advice. Because there are so many people who responded to that girl's video. Oh, you just need a skincare routine. You just need to go to the gym. You got to work on your self-image. You got to da-da-da-da-da-da-da, giving her advice. Did she want to receive any of that? No, she didn't want advice. A, she wanted a man, and I don't know if she got that man, but also B, she just wanted to get on here and share her negative self-thoughts. And it comes across as, oh, this poor girl, I feel so bad for her. But in my personal opinion, when people behave like that, that is displaying a level of vulnerable narcissism. Like I said, we all post on the internet for our own personal reasons, and attention has something to do with it. But when somebody puts out something on the internet that is so negative, and they consistently put out this same type of content to the point where this is some type of clearly rage bait, which is the intention, in my personal opinion, it's rage bait of a different variety. So this type of content absolutely does fall into rage bait, because anything that invokes a strong emotional reaction out of you, it doesn't necessarily have to be rage bait, but when it is posted specifically to get a very specific reaction, be it anger, be it frustration, be it, oh my gosh, it's meant to stir up your emotions to garner engagement. That is rage bait. And this is exactly the type of content this girl is making. It is rage bait on its face, while this, oh, reclaiming my ugliness, the ugly uprising, even though that content may not on its face look like rage bait, if it is meant to invoke a strong visceral reaction out of you in order to drive engagement, it is rage bait. And this type of content absolutely falls into the rage bait category, as well as, in my personal opinion, vulnerable narcissism. Rage bait is the intention. Vulnerable narcissism is the vehicle, and I don't feel like we talk about vulnerable narcissism enough. So because y'all know I'm a big words mean things person, let's define vulnerable narcissism really quickly. Vulnerable narcissism, also known as covert narcissism, is a personality disorder characterized by insecurity, hypersensitivity to criticism, and a tendency to blame others. Vulnerable narcissists may appear introverted and self-conscious, but they have grandiose fantasies and a strong focus on themselves. They may also be envious of others and exploit relationships for personal gain. And this is important because the relationships that are being exploited in this particular case, because this behavior is happening online, the relationships that are being exploited are parasocial relationships, trying to get you, the viewer, to feel sorry for them and interact with them in the form of engagement, because your time, your energy, your likes, your clicks, your views, your shares, your follows, your stitches, all of that is currency on the internet. Your attention is currency. And in them getting you to engage, interact, and feel that strong emotional reaction, that is them trying to exploit that type of parasocial relationship with you so you can feed their narcissistic supply. Think about it. What so often happens when we see somebody get online and post a video of that nature, a video that is very demeaning, a video that is very self-depreciating, a video of someone calling themselves ugly, feeling sorry for themselves, or in a difficult situation, and they're just feeling vulnerable. What almost always happens? It goes viral and people start flooding in with videos to uplift them, or offering resources, or wanting to help out and make that person feel better. Because before I recognized what was happening, before my discernment grew in that area, and also because I have a soft spot for Black women, I got caught up in that. Last year, around this time last year, actually, there was a young woman who got on the internet calling herself ugly. And I stitched her video and I was like, you are not ugly. Like, I am so sad to see you saying that. I'm so tired of seeing Black women get on the internet, Black girls, because this girl was so young. I think she was like in her late teens or early 20s. So very young to feel so weighed down by life because she's ugly. And I was like, I'm tired of seeing young Black women get on the internet and share these thoughts, feelings, and opinions about themselves and be weighed down by the shackles of white supremacist standards of beauty. You are not ugly, you are beautiful, and I hope you find it in yourself. Really hyping this girl up because I felt really bad for her feeling that way. Then somebody got in the comments and they were like, I'm ugly, leave us alone. We have the right to feel ugly. The only reason why you are so offended by her being ugly, another Black girl, mind you, sharing this, leaving this comment, was like, the only reason why you feel so hurt by her saying she's ugly is because you look like her. Now, the only thing the girl and I, whose video I stitched, the only thing we had in common was we were dark skinned, but we did not look alike at all. But even if she looked like me, it wouldn't matter because I don't want to see anybody calling themselves ugly, especially no young Black girl. And she was not ugly, whatever. So anyways, I see all of these women getting in the comments and are basically like, let her be ugly. If she wants to be ugly, let her be ugly in peace. I was like, oh, okay. And then the craziest thing after that happened, another content creator who I had been following for a minute, I don't know if we're mutuals or not, but I really respect her off of social media. She does very interesting things and I don't want to give her away, but she stitched a video, or no, she responded. She made a video in response to the comment that girl made talking about the only reason why I thought that girl was ugly is because we looked alike, and because I saw somebody who looks like me calling themselves ugly, that was offensive to me because it made me feel vicariously ugly through them. Anyways, this creator that I really like and respect, she replied to that comment in a video on her page talking about, yeah, that's often what we see. The only reason why a lot of Black women are offended by this girl calling herself ugly is because they look like her. And we have to really reconcile that with ourselves. Some of us are just ugly. And I was like, wait a minute. Is this, that scene in Euphoria when they're watching the play, right? And it's like Maddie and Cassie. And then what's the other girl's name? I always forget her name. Kat? I don't know what her name is. Anyways. They're watching the play and they're like, wait a minute, is this effing play about us? As I was watching that video, I was like, wait a minute, is this woman calling me ugly? Like, what? I literally was like, what is happening right now? Like, oh my God. I think I ended up like privating the video or doing something to it because the comments got a little weird. It got so weird. But after that, I was like, I will never comment on a video ever again. If somebody, especially of a young Black woman calling herself ugly, if she wants to call herself ugly, I'm not going to offer any uplifting words or positive words. People are fighting for their right to be ugly, and I'm going to just sit here pretty and let them be ugly. Like, it is what it is. But I just thought about that video. I just thought about that video. Oh my gosh. I was like, are you serious right now? Anyways, so often when we see these videos of people who are in these difficult situations or are just self-depreciating and saying the worst things about themselves, the internet is going to do what the internet does. And because people are kind and care about others and we love a good sob story, people will want to swoop in and uplift them. And then other content creators will reach out and be like, okay, let me give you a free makeover. Let me do some makeup for you. Let me do some hair for you, blah, 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 blah. Not only is that attention, but again, those people are exploiting those vulnerable narcissists who engage in this type of behavior, who post this type of content. They are exploiting other people's parasocial relationships, or they're exploiting people's good-naturedness and desire to help. They are exploiting that for personal gain and attention. These people are narcissists. They are narcissists, okay? And it's so frustrating how so many people cannot see through that. When you go to someone's page and it's literally just them dumping on themselves or talking about how ugly they are or everything terrible is going on in their lives, at a certain point, you gotta realize that they are the problems or that they like the situation that they are in. Because at a certain point, and this is something that I always say, if you've watched this channel, you've heard me say it before, personal responsibility has to become a factor in the equation. It is your life. Take control of it. Something like ugliness can be fixed. You don't like being ugly, change it. You don't like your environment, change it. Take control of your life. But that is so much harder to do. Actually acting and being an agent of change in your own life, taking the reins and control of your own life, that is so much harder to do. And it is less rewarding than getting on the internet and just complaining, building up a following of people who feel pity for you, and then exploiting that pity for profit. So many people build platforms off of this behavior. The thing is, though, it's not happening this time around for this girl because, like I said, I noticed the tide and the response was completely different, and I am glad because I think people are just sick. People are tapped out. Like, people are feeling empathy fatigue. I think so many people have just been exploited for so long on the internet that not only do you have AI playing with people's heads, but also B, the purse strings are getting tighter. We are in a recession. People are being asked to do more with a lot less. People get on the internet and lie. People are tired of being rage baited. And as someone who is a GoFundMe, I am so easy. If you put up a GoFundMe, I'm jumping in. I'm donating money. That is just how I've always been as a person. But even me, myself, being such a generous person, I've noticed that I'm really tapped out. When I see certain situations going viral and my inclination is to help, I always just like take a step back and do my due diligence. And I'm like, let me give this a couple of days and let it play out and see what happens. Because one thing the internet is going to do, it's going to expose somebody. And the last like 3 or 4 times I ended up giving money to a GoFundMe about something, I won't say it ended up being a scam, but it ended up being like an unfortunate outcome. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. Like, the person like lied or they weren't 100% forthcoming with the truth of the situation. Now, I don't need to know every single detail because in my personal opinion, when it comes to money, I'm of the mindset that once you give somebody money, you don't have any rights to what they do with the money, how they spend it. If they end up saying that they were going to do one thing with it and then they end up doing another thing with it, oh, well, you can't be like, give me my money back. Again, that's how I operate because I don't give away any money that I can't stand to lose. Okay, if I can't stand to lose that money, I'm not giving it away. So I always treat money as a gift. If I'm giving money away, I'm not expecting any of it back. That's how I have always operated until very recently. And it's not because I can't afford to give, but it is because my discernment has been kicking in a lot more lately. And I'm recognizing that a lot of people are vulnerable narcissists. They are putting out the worst of their situation, looking for donations, looking for their hands out, or looking to be uplifted in the form of growing a following in the laziest way without having to do any of the work. And I'm just not willing to buy into that anymore because I'm fully aware of what is happening and I just don't want to be exploited in that way. And so I am glad to see that the response to this girl has been different for multiple reasons, but mostly because I'm just sick of Black women getting on the internet and talking about how ugly they are. Stop doing this. It's embarrassing for you. It doesn't look good for us. It's very annoying. Stop doing it. Go to therapy. But also, B, you're not going to build a platform off of me. And I think she also gives pick me. There is something about her that gives a little bit of pick me in the sense that calling yourself ugly, but wanting a man so badly that you will call yourself ugly and be like, yes, I know I'm ugly, but please date me anyway. That's crazy to me. Like, I'm sorry that maybe it's not pick me, but it is very male identified in a way that I just can't co-sign. I can't co-sign that. Again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with seeking partnership. There's nothing wrong with seeking relationships and marriage and love. I'm married. I love love. I love love for the girls. I'm decenter men, but I also explicitly feel that you can decenter men while also be in a healthy relationship with a man. What is this woman doing to work on herself? What are her hobbies? Because I went down her page and her hobbies seem to be just poo-pooing all over herself. I don't know. She gives like very sarcastic, weird energy, and I just don't. That's not my vibe. That's not my vibe. I know that there are people who like that type of energy. I just don't do that type of energy because I don't know when you're playing. I don't know when you're joking around. It's just too much for me. And then also people like that tend to be really sensitive. And I'm just at a place in my life where we got too much going on in the world. The world is ghetto enough as it is. I don't need that energy in my life. I just don't. But anyways, I am just really glad to see. I've seen a few people talk about vulnerable narcissists, but it's mostly been like sociologists, more specifically psychologists, people who study social media and then also are able to pick up you're not able to diagnose anybody off of a screen that you haven't met before, but people who do talk about this behavior and how it is showing up online. I've seen videos from, psychologists talking about this, medical professionals talking about narcissism, talking about narcissistic behaviors and traits that you see on social media, but I don't see the average person talking about this. So that's actually the biggest reason why I wanted to do this video, to make y'all aware that, once again, I talk about rage bait a lot. I probably talk about rage bait so much. And the next thing that I'm going to be spending a lot of my time and energy talking about, especially as it pertains to social media, is AI. Because along with rage bait making you stupider, AI is also making you stupider. And I want people to be smarter with not just how they use social media, but also how they engage with social media and what they are taking in and engaging with. Because now more than ever, you are making people millionaires or giving them very nice payouts because they are exploiting you emotionally. And a lot of people don't have the emotional intelligence or the discernment to recognize that your emotions, your energy, your time, your likes, your clicks, your views, your shares, your followers, it is currency, and y'all should be spending it a lot more wisely. Because again, what is the desired outcome? Like, let's think about this logically for a second. Okay, let's say a man slides in her DMs, and what is the intentions of that man? Is he going to be a man of good character? Is he going to be, we all know that, not just men, but people are very visual creatures. Are you going to want to date someone who just got on the internet and told billions of people that they are ugly? Is that the type of person you want on your arm? What type of character, what type of person would you reasonably attract putting a video out there like that? Let's just think critically. And once you engage that level of critical thinking, you will realize that not only are there a lot of vulnerable narcissists on the internet, there are a lot of people who do not want to change their situation and are exploiting your emotions for a check. And you know what? Maybe it's not that deep. We are living in an it's not that deep era. So maybe I'm just somebody who is too big brained and I read into so many of these things and it's not that deep and I should leave it on a very surface level. And she should have every single right to call herself ugly if she wants. And if it bothers me, I can scroll past, which is totally fine and totally valid. However, it is 2025 and there are tools at your disposal. So if it's really not that deep and she just wants to find a man who wants to date an ugly woman, good luck with that. Good freaking luck. But also, there are tools available at your disposal in 2025. If you genuinely feel like you're ugly, to a certain degree, that's a choice. You don't even need a boatload of money nowadays. You can hop on Amazon and get good quality skincare, especially Korean skincare, on the low, okay? So again, it's a choice. We are all making choices here. And to get on the internet and call yourself ugly, that is a choice that I can't relate to, can't identify with, and it's giving narcissism, to be perfectly honest. So stop getting on the internet and calling yourself ugly. If you genuinely felt you were ugly, go out and do something about it. The world is yours and none of this is real. None of this is permanent. Drop down in the comments. Let me know if you saw the video. Let me know your thoughts. Have you seen some responses? Do you feel that Black women need to stop getting on the internet and calling ourselves ugly? Because stop. Oh my God. I'm literally over it at this point. I'm over it. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, peace out.